Chapter 2. In case you were wondering how I found out Stella is with Mick Black at Purple Park, she told me herself. It wasn't face to face. She didn't speak to me on the phone either. She left a voicemail when she knew I would be in court. I specialize in sex crimes that involve missing persons, primarily girls Stella's age. She's 24. I'm the only one who handles cases involving girls 18 to 27. The other two detectives chase child pornographers and their pedophile fan base. When I heard Stella's voicemail, it was at the worst possible time. The defendant's attorney accused both myself and the victim of a human trafficker of lying. I've had a million tumbles with lawyers in those trials, but they can never unnerve me. There are no alternative angles from which to look at the story when they question me. The truth stares straight ahead, and they are blinded by the glare. I'm unflappable and impervious to any pencil neck's attempt at intimidation. I don't use any kind of trick, unless you consider holding tenaciously to the truth a trick. It's when they attack the victim and reduce her to tears that I get upset. But what can I do? I'm in court. My credibility would lie in tatters if I put one of those lawyers through the wall. I am capable of self-control. It takes everything I've got, but I can swallow my puke when I'd rather let someone know how much they make me sick. The trial adjourned for the day, and I ran from the doors of the courthouse to the parking lot, fueled by the anxiety of a 4-hour Nick fit, and got in my car, where I smoked the best cigarette of the day. I took out my phone and saw that Stella had left a voicemail. The time was 1:44 p.m. Strange, considering that she was rarely up at that hour. On the rare occasion when she did send me something in the afternoon, it was usually just a text. I called my voicemail and listened to the message that would destroy and reorient my life irrevocably. Hi, Larry. God, this is hard. Look, I love you, but I don't deserve you. You don't deserve me either. Wait, that didn't come out right. You deserve better, that's it. I'm a slave, Larry. Junkies are slaves. You see, people have dreams. Most people have long lists of dreams they hope will come true. Love, money, a better body, a sports car, a yacht, their crush to fall in love with them, children, better health. It could be anything. That's the way most people are with dreams. They seldom dream of only one thing. That's what makes junkies different from the rest of the human population. Junkies dream of only one thing, getting high. That dream comes true several times a day, but the dream never dies because the nightmare of withdrawal sets in and sends us chasing the dream again. That dream is always around the corner where a pair of sneakers with their laces tied together hangs from the telephone wires. Mick Black from Purple Park. You may have heard of the man and the place. If not, ask around and you're sure to find out what you need to know. Mick Black makes dreams come true for people like me. He keeps me high. High at Purple Park, where I earn my high by serving his clients. I won't worry you by going into graphic details. All I'll say is never do business when there are alternatives to money. You may never find me. You may never find me alive. I wouldn't have given up on us if I weren't a lost cause. Give up on me, Larry. I'll only bring you pain. I feel shamed that I've hurt you already. I didn't want it to continue. I didn't want to be the kind of lover you have to speak in defense of. You shouldn't have to justify my actions to anybody. It's not fair. I'm as good as dead. You owe it to yourself to find somebody who values their life. Only that kind of person can contribute something of value to yours. If you search for me, you'll just become another fly in Mick's web. I don't want you to be hurt or killed. Your greatest act of love would be to go on with your life and find happiness with another woman. I hope you find someone truly wonderful who cherishes you. If there is life after death, I hope that if I can find you, I'll see a happy man who has found peace in his life. You won't get that as long as you cling to your hope that you'll rescue me again. I'm sorry about all this, but I felt I owed it to you to at least say goodbye. My phone's battery is running low, but it won't make a difference anyway, because they don't allow cell phones in Purple Park. Goodbye, Larry. Thank you for everything. I shared my last moments of happiness with you, and I'm glad. I would be better off where you live, but you wouldn't. Not with a junkie in your life. So this is goodbye forever. Larry, you have my love and gratitude. You were the first real man of my life. The kind of man I always dreamed of and pined for. I couldn't believe my luck. Stella became all I wanted out of life. This voicemail is all she left behind. If it were an object made of glass, I would dust and polish it every day. I would have placed it in a nest of velvet atop a pedestal. I would have set aside a room for it. There would have been nothing else in that room. Nothing in the Louvre would have come close to that object in terms of value. No mint can print enough money to persuade me to sell it, because putting a price tag on it, no matter what the figure, would have devalued it in my mind. Never tell me I don't know how to love. I can out-love most men. Some women can hardly withstand it. They want a strong man, but they don't want him to come on too strong too soon. That's the biggest mistake I make with most women. That's why I'm so bad at letting go. Passionate men come on like a hurricane, and many women grab on to lesser men as the passionate types carry on, destroying opportunities and their dignity along the way. The women run for cover, straight out of my life. Not Stella. She let the winds blow her where they may, exhilarated by the excitement and chaos, eager to see where she would find herself in the aftermath of the passing storm. A new storm was coming, and the clouds had only begun to gather. It was midnight, and I stood in Plasto Gardens, a parkette adjacent to the north side of the Bloor Viaduct, a bridge that stands astride the Don Valley River. Technically it's called the Prince Edward Viaduct, but nobody gets persnickety about that. Prince Edward would be far from flattered to know that the viaduct bearing his name is the former suicide capital of Toronto. The city installed wiring and bars to the rails to ensure that the motorists of the Don Valley Parkway would no longer find themselves wiping blood from their windshields. If you've been a cop in one city for longer than a decade, all you see is a topography of tragedy and malfeasance. Rivers of blood. Junkies climbing and falling on mountains of drugs. The place where you saw your first gunshot victim. The crack house where you walked in on 5 dead junkies, blue in the face, with syringes hanging from their arms. More life in the program on the room's television. One of your colleagues tells you it's a dealer's house because if it weren't, the television would have been sold by then. You drive by a house and see a happy family heading out to drive to Grandma's house for Christmas dinner. 3 healthy, contented, well-adjusted children. Mom is a homemaker and Dad is a breadwinner. Who wouldn't want a family like that? The child pornographers who used that house as a studio before that family bought it would have had something different in mind. I sat for a half hour at Plasto Gardens before I realized that nothing or nobody was going to give me any indication of where Purple Park might be. I walked up to Broadview and Danforth and had a slice at Pizza. I hadn't eaten all day. I subsist on coffee, cigarettes, and rum, though I only drink the rum at home. The only other customer at Pizza was a man who sat on the opposite side of the dining room. He wore a dark purple hoodie. He sat staring down at his slice. We sat down at the same time, but as I dunked the last of my crust in creamy garlic dip, he had yet to take his first bite. I should have minded my own business, but I couldn't help noticing something about his body language told me that he was waiting for someone or something to happen, and that he may have only bought the pizza so that he wouldn't get kicked out of the restaurant for loitering. As that thought occurred to me, he looked up. Right at me. He had this expression of mild disgust on his face, like I had done something stupid, and was so stupid I was incapable of seeing the stupidity in it. I looked back down at my food. While I looked down at the crumbs, I wasn't intimidated by him, I just didn't want to engage someone who was most likely crazy. It was most likely night workers, criminals, and the mentally ill who go out to restaurants after midnight in Toronto. New York is the city that never sleeps, but most of Toronto settles in for the night somewhere around 11 o'clock. No matter what this guy was up to, guys who wore hoodies with the hood up were usually bad news if you ran into them after midnight. Still looking down at the table, I wiped my mouth with my serviette, crumpled it up, crinkled my pop can, and began gathering everything up so I could leave, take a walk, and smoke a cigarette. I heard a squeak no further than 2 feet in front of me, and the view within my peripheral vision confirmed that the man in the purple hoodie was sitting across from me. He was grinning, though there didn't seem to be any kind of agenda behind it. "Can I help you?" It occurred to me that a woman would have just run. If the door had been jammed, she would have jumped through the glass. Same smile, stonewalling me. "Look, if this is some attempt to intimidate me, you chose the wrong guy." I took my badge out from within the inside pocket of my coat. "The place you're looking for, the place you're trying to find, that won't help you. You'll find better company at home next to a bottle of rum." How would he know that I'm a habitual rum drinker? It could be a lucky guess. My nose had developed a touch of rosacea at the tip after all the years of hard drinking. Still, why hadn't he assumed it was bourbon or scotch? "How did you know where I was going?" Purple Park. He said that so that I would say nothing. Some people put words in your mouth. He was pulling them out and forcing them back down my throat. When you've been a cop for as long as I have, you can feel the impending threat of approaching goons. My stomach twists into knots as I am nauseated by their collective stench. I am burned by their body heat. Sure enough, I looked up and saw that the window behind where he was sitting was blacked out by identically attired men. Their hoods were tied so tight, their eyebrows were concealed by the opacity of thick purple fabric. The line extended around the entire building. The area where I would normally have seen traffic and street lights had been blotted out. I was living in a world of purple. I looked over to see if the cashier had noticed this and what they were doing about it. He had disappeared. More purple hoodie-clad men stood behind the counter. The line started from behind the left side and continued beyond the right. Was this Purple Park? Where were you going, Larry? Is this it? Is this what? Purple Park. For now. What does that mean? It can be everywhere. In 15 minutes, this building will be Pizza Pizza again, and you'll go about your business. Who are you? We are Mick Black. I thought there was only one of him. His tentacles reach far, Larry. Right now, Stella is wrapped up inside of them. I stiffened. You should see them together. It's like somebody got Satan and Jesus together in the same room. It's worthy of a Da Vinci portrait. A furnace of rage was burning inside of me. I got hot. I started sweating. I stopped blinking as my eyelids slowed to a standstill. The rest of me began to shake. It's moments like these when I can feel my own pulse without using my hands. I can feel it in my head. I can feel the rhythm in the vein of my forehead, the one that sticks out. The thread of projectile bleeding advancing by the minute as I was partially deafened from tachycardia, reverberating into my unconscious, biting into the chains of self-restraint that kept me from leaping up and crushing that prick's skull with my bare hands. Scary. That rage isn't for show. It's deep. It comes from within the soul. I'll bet those little junkie shitheads you shake down at the station are terrified of you. They would snitch on their own mothers just to get you off their backs. And good for you. Just remember, though, if you don't give up your search, you will find out the ugly truth about Mick Black. Which is, he's the eye of a hurricane. Things don't get better just because you've found him. At that point, you've only cut your suffering in half. Evacuate now while you're still safe. Consider yourself lucky. You got a warning. It's a favor, and believe me, Mick Black doesn't do many favors. Do Larry Stillman a favor. Tell Mick Black that if he hurts Stella, he will shed a liter of blood for every tear. Make sure he does the math. I want him to calculate the odds against him. It will be very unfair. Are you sure? I'll do Larry Stillman this favor. I would advise against sending that kind of message. 1,000 souls within a single body. That's the math of Mick Black. The ratio leaves you outnumbered, even when he is unassisted. He doesn't know Larry Stillman nearly as well as he thinks he does. Tell him I'm coming, and then tell Stella. It's your suicide. I became drowsy, and it made no sense. I drank 3 coffees at McDonald's less than an hour before that conversation, and I smoked more cigarettes than I could have kept track of. I was wired. I spoke through a yawn. I don't care. Tell them. Another yawn. What I said. He didn't say another word. He just stared at me dispassionately as I fell asleep. He was the last thing I saw. He is a thing. When you're that inhuman, you fall out of the grid and you just become part of a pestilence that plagues the rest of the population. Like insects.